Life and business never stop evolving, and neither should you. That means we need to learn how to pivot in responses to market changes, economic changes, national and natural disasters. Now, let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because today's guest will share her mindset and methodologies for bouncing in changing times and challenges. That means, as she puts it, learning to dance with what the world hands you.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Leslie Yerkes, is the founder principal of Catalyst Consulting Group Inc., an organizational developmental change management consulting firm established in 1987. Leslie fills her time with writing, speaking, consulting, coaching, facilitating, and service to her community. Leslie is passionate about leadership, learning, and supporting others to be their best selves in all they do. She's also the author of 6 business books, 3 children's books. I cherry pick one that I like, which is Fun Works, Creating Places Where People Love to Work. But we'll hear more about her books, her website, and she's not shy, so buckle down. Here we go. Welcome to the show, and happy to have you here, Leslie.
Man, and I'm happy to be here with you, me in one place, you in another place. So I want to establish already, I love you for a lot of reasons. And you and we need to be honest with people out there, have a relationship because we're both authors and swim in that community together. Mm-hmm. But I've already discovered in your announcing our podcast, we have another thing in common besides some values and some friendships. We both love alliteration. I love alliteration. So thus, I love you, Rob.
Jollis.
Hard to erase the nickname in my mind, which he's Jolie. He's the Jolie man.
Let me tell you, I always considered myself lucky. I wasn't particularly tall. I wasn't the biggest guy in the room. But when the bullies would come up and go, Jollis, what are you, jolly or something? I'd say, well, yeah. I mean, is that all you got? Names could rhyme with other things, if you know what I mean. Being connected to the word jolly has never been an issue for me.
Yes. We could do a whole podcast on your parents named you. Yeah. You inherited a name. Mm-hmm. What creative, formative experiences did that name cause you that made you who you are today? That's a whole podcast on its own.
That's a whole podcast. And as you can already hear, Leslie is quite a communicator. So I'm going to wrestle back from you. Now that you've been asking me questions, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. But by the way, thanks for correcting your name. I've met you numerous times and never knew that your name was pronounced that way. Your last name. Never knew it.
Because we've always been on a first name basis.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Last names just didn't matter. And I, by the way, am a single woman, have come close. Here we go. Transparency is the word. They haven't strucken it from the code yet. Transparency is okay. It's my father's name, so I am going to be last in a line. I've come close to that marriage thing where women gave up their name. I'm not giving mine up anymore. Good. Regardless of where I land in life, I am going to be a Yerkes to the end of the world. And isn't that something that I've had to think about? Do I want to keep this name? It's on all of my books. It's who I am. But again, another topic about agency, who we are, identity. We could go down many roads, but you have planned something for your podcast group. I'll sit back. I have taken the direction, clear, concise, and compelling. I can do that.
Yeah, well, that is yet to be determined, but let's see how well you do that. All right. So look, in the opening for me, I was really pulling into that kind of bouncing and changing times and challenges. And I don't know if you know this, Leslie, but I have this other podcast that's called A Book Finds You, because we authors don't find books, they find us. And so when I saw that changing times and challenges, I knew there was a story there. So I'd like to hear that from you about the changing times and challenges that you face.
Absolutely. First and foremost, the two of us are storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
People learn through stories. I've learned through the stories of my life. And I'm a believer now I hope it's not the tail end of my career. It's one of the final chapters of something formal, that all of us, who we become, is a reflection of the formative experiences of our lives. And in having formative experiences can be good and they can be hardships as well. Do they scar you or do they make you stronger? I don't know why, but I born into a family with two girls that couldn't each of us be more different than each other. One is scarred by life, and I am strengthened by life. And every hardship that I've experienced has caused me to become more of myself. And every lesson, every opportunity to rub up against something that exposes you a little bit more, I turn into a lesson. What is to be learned from this situation? We can't avoid the continuum of life, and thus we can't avoid change. I've also chosen to make change my career. I'm a business owner in the consulting field of organizational development, change management, org behavior, people and process in the context of work. And that's just all about change. But I'm in a seat that I didn't anticipate, or know what the view would be from this chair, which is I'm 4 decades into this lifestyle of self-employment, business ownership, entrepreneurship. It's the hardest boot camp in the world. Not everybody survives it. It is both a lifestyle and a mindset and a set of competencies. But now I sit 40 years in, having been through so many changes, having seen the best and the worst of human behavior in organizations. And the biggest change on my career and my life has beset me, which is this thing called a pandemic.
Mm.
Here, 4 decades in, when natural disasters or national disasters or economics interrupted my business for 4 days, 4 weeks, 4 months, I tended to generously support my clients whose ability to pay went away. I did the same in the pandemic. Supply chain, cash flow, but we're into year 5.
Yeah.
I didn't plan for that.
Yeah.
It crushed my business model that evolved over time. One of the lessons about being in a robust career, whether it's entrepreneurship or not, you are going to have to reinvent over and over and over. The market moves, the need moves, everything, technology moves. That's a constant, the reinvention. But in the same time, during the pandemic, because of my age and the depth of my relationships, most of my C-suite clients quietly retired under the dark of the pandemic. So all of my relationships quietly went away, and everything that is in business is around relationship.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you know, you have no hair. Did you notice that this morning?
Yeah,
When you get
I
up,
notice that every day. Yes. Thanks for
the
pointing that
comment
out,
that I
though,
thought about in the
Leslie.
morning
Yeah.
was, when you get out of bed, your hair looks great. When I get out of bed, it's all over the place.
Yeah. No, I refer to it as sometimes as having a bad head day, but I don't have a
There
bad
you go.
hair day. Yeah.
I let my hair grow out, and this is what was waiting for me, was the silver of my mother and my grandmother. These 40 years have passed so quickly. They have been so full. They have been so joyful and challenging and hard and rich and meaningful. I've supported Fortune 100 companies. I birth a couple of companies every year. I do nonprofits, for-profits, all industries around the world. It's been a ride.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I wake up here at the 5th year of the pandemic at an age when people think about retirement, and I'm just top of my game.
Right.
I wrote a blog that said, put me in, coach. One, the cracks of the beginning of the pandemic are crevices in organizations. We've got issues all over. Put me in, coach. My relationships are gone. My clients are sleepy. People want to work remotely and not engage in what I do, which is facilitate groups to learn and make their own decisions so they own them. And there's a bit of ageism. I'm used to the woman thing. I am not used to this age
Oh,
thing.
you're seeing some ageism, are you? Let me tell you. First of all, let me unpack about 18 things you just said. One of them is congratulations on 40 years. Until we spoke just now, I've never met anyone who's been in the business longer than me until I met you. So I'm in my 34th year, and so that's like dog years. We just You'll see
Whoosh.
a lot of people jump from the big companies and they'll come out and they'll be the speaker and this and that. And they'll last 3 or 4 or 5 years, maybe seven. I can't count on one hand 10. So 40 is might not sound like much to people who are listening right now, but trust me, that's 40 years of delivering, grinding in the pit, managing the business side of this. Listen, we call it butts in the seats. If we don't have butts in the seats, we're not in business. So there's the travel, there's all that goes into it. My hat is off to you for those 40 years. I think it's very impressive. So now let's talk about a couple other things. You're mentioning the pandemic. I went through the same pandemic. My nose would grow 7 inches if I told you, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. It harmed your business. Everyone's business was changed. Look, some businesses went up, most went down. But if you were a professional speaker tied to companies that were putting meetings up in the Marriott ballroom where Leslie and I do our work, okay, it was gone. And even now, you're right, the model has changed. But and I want you to get into this too. I want you to get into the fact that we have to sort of stop, get up, dust ourselves off, put one foot in front of the other and say, okay, different model. How do I make this model work? So I know for me, I'll never, ever, until I hang it up, my microphone up, and I'll still be on the bench going, I'll tell you, you can't get the mind share of an individual online. Okay. But you can reinforce and implement what we do live online.
Absolutely.
So are you finding yourself drifting to maybe more team coaching and using this deck of cards that's been handed to us, which we don't like, but that's our hand right now?
Yes. So you and I often meet on an annual basis. It's this wonderful watering hole of authors.
Yeah.
I dip back into it after being absent from it for 10 years
Yeah.
because life affected change on me. I proactively played a role in the design team of that community and came because I woke up one day realizing I'd helped every one of my clients redesign and reposition, but the cobbler had not taken care of herself.
Mhm.
And I needed to get out of my box and out of my environment and rub up against other people to say, what do you have in the way of skill set? What is the new need? What relationships do you have to leverage? And what are other people doing to spark my own redesign? I had pivoted into something that comes naturally. I am at a place in my career where I have done everything: stand-up speaking, training, instructional design. I do deep consulting, individual and group coaching, but I do it embedded into the whole system that I know very, very well because I do it all for them: strategic planning, culture creation, leadership and management development. If I were a physician, I'd be a general practitioner. Birth a few babies every year, take care of their grandparents. The org for me is a body with the same parts at different phases of its evolution. The one thing I pivoted to immediately was peer learning circles. I also don't, Rob, believe I'm the smartest person, nor should any consultant be so egotistical that they think they have all the answers. We don't. We're playing into a world that is changing so rapidly. I facilitate that people come together, think together in the most robust ways, and navigate together. And they always need a coach and a referee and a guide. Nickname for me has been Sherpa Guide. I get to the summit, I get you there safely, I get you down again. So I did peer learning circles, groups of individuals from different industries coming together on a monthly basis, taking care of themselves, caring about the others in the group, and learning along the way. I have a CEO group, very interesting to see what levels of vulnerability they'll go to or not go to. But I am someone who brings the greatest strengths out of individuals. I help people be radically successful. But you know what? I took a little too long on taking care of myself. So that's one new thing. I speak, I write. The books and the speaking go together.
Right.
I teach at a university. I consult, and it went from having downtown offices and a staff of 10 to me in the beginning, middle, and end for 10 anchor clients. I was with them all of the time. I was on their C-suite. That part of my business is wiped away. All new relationships need greater than ever, doing a lot online. But one of the weirdest things, and here's some counseling from you and all, when 9/11 happened and it all went away, when 2008 happened and it all went away, and there's been other things that wipe it away, and be prepared to have your life wiped away pretty regularly. Life interrupts when your parents age, when. I am loyal to the end. I work for them regardless of their ability to pay because it always comes back. I never, ever, by the way, bill retroflectory. If there's debt, it's on me. But it's always, generosity has always been my lead.
Yeah. Well, I think that
4 years
actually,
is bad.
yeah. Well, maybe some good karma. I think you and I are cut from the same cloth on that one. I know when the pandemic hit, and that was the end of my client base as well. The first thing I did was study every single virtual piece of information there was. I felt like I was coaching my 6-year old when she played soccer. I was a basketball player, but I was smarter than a 6-year-old. I had the knowledge of an 8-year-old, okay, in soccer, but I was a damn good coach because they needed what I had at that level. I was an 8-year-old teaching 6-year-olds about virtual communication, but I was learning as quickly as I could. I offered these programs at no cost to my client base, A, so they could see there's Rob pitching in, trying to help, and B, you never want to be forgotten by your clients. So I know we all want to generate an invoice, but sometimes what we want to do is just be there for our client, and then we hope that they're there for us. But it's so tough. It's interesting. You also brought up 2008, by the way. Most people don't seem to acknowledge 2008, but for professional speakers, and try one who's connected to the financial industry, 2008 was a very challenging time. But it's like waves. We bounce back. It's just, how do we handle it? It's incredible.
But you're so lovely because you said I pivoted to coach, and you used the metaphor of 6-year-olds. My clients who know they can call me anytime, anyhow, generous, loyal. You've hit two of my core values: inclusive and honest. Honesty is the only value I add. I speak truth to power. That's the one. Why would you have a consultant if you wouldn't have someone who's brave enough to tell you, that's not the way to do it? I condition them not to ask about fees. 4 years in. So I, who have a pack of 6 dogs, that's a story on its own, by the way, 3 children's books about dogs, but I'm now a single lady with dogs. Don't call me an old single lady with dogs. But dogs teach you everything. Dogs are great for lessons. So I train my dogs regularly. So now I have to train my clients again to say, can we formalize this relationship with a contract? Oh my gosh. So I think about dog training all the time. You think about coaching 6-year-olds.
I do. Well, I just remember I got to be smarter than the client. You said it yourself. Not only do I want a consultant, by the way, who will speak the truth, I want a trainer who will speak the truth, meaning I don't want a trainer who knows everything. I'd like a trainer who might be able to figure out where to get everything. But I want one that will speak the truth as well. I think there's a lot of credibility when we look a client or a room in the eye and say, that one I don't know. Let me get it down for you. I'll get that one, but by the time we get back from lunch. But I think that solidifies everything else we put in there. But it's important. But I want to switch a little bit with you. I want
Okay.
to. Oh, and let me drop this in real fast. Give me that website because I'm going to forget, and I want to make sure I get that in. So, what's the website so people can see you and get a hold of you?
Very easy. My clients have given me everything. They gave me the name to my company. They've given me my job title. They told me to shift away from what my website was called because they said, Leslie, you're the brand. It is www.leslieyerkes, no bar, no space, no nothing.com.
There you
And
go.
there's a new one to come, leslieyerkes-storyteller.com, but that's not up yet. But
All right.
leslieyerkes.com, just Google me,
Yeah.
then decide if you want to date me. This
Yeah.
is to your audience, not you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. No, no, no. I'm actually not.
I'm hurt,
We
but,
could, that's another podcast.
but
So let's get on to we've unbundled a couple of them,
all right.
but
Let's get
let's
on.
get on the truth of
Yeah.
everybody out there, everybody on this podcast is going to grow older. So someday you're going to reach a magic age that someone says, society says you're supposed to retire now. I am the head of the tribe of the unretired. I'm not done. I'm not cooked. I'm top of my game. And I'd like to announce this to the world. Do not put baby on the expiration expired shelf. I, the 66 is the new 46. We found out not only have I been in business more years from you, but you're older than me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with the audience. But that's true. Well, that's because Leslie was going, I'm old. You don't know from old. I said, I think I'm a year older than you. So I kind of know from old. It's one of those things. There's certain things we can't change. I actually, you may not know this about me, but I work for, I think, 17 years now, helping people who are in career transition, volunteer. And I'm basically working with people who are between 40 and let's say 75 because those are the ones that are really getting caught in this storm. And yes, ageism exists. And yes, there are so many examples of issues where people are really being treated unfairly. But no, I'm not a part of the pity party. I will not. I mean, I know that some of my clients are saying, maybe that guy Giles is getting a little old. But I also look at it and go, okay, well, at first, there's nothing I can change about that. And second, I'm not sure I'd want to do business with you anyway. And third, because I'm half full, I think there's a few smart people out there that say, you know what? I'd like a seasoned veteran in here. I need that voice right now. So that's all to say that when you mix it all together, why am I worried about what people think of my age or your age or whether you're tall or short or whatever you are? I'm going to go in there. I'm going to present the best self I can be. If you like it, pull me off the shelf. If you don't, best you leave me alone. I'll find somebody else. I wish people were just more honest about it so we don't have to mess around with this dance that's going nowhere.
Well, and this is what I'd like to put out there for people is experience. You can't put a price on it.
Mm-hmm.
Foundational knowledge, can't put a price on it. As a young person, I had chutzpah. Am risk averse. I jumped off the bridge without the bungee cord when I started my business. You can run fast and think you can learn how to fly on the way down. I'm a little wiser now, so I'm a little more thoughtful about the things that I do, but I don't want to get on a plane with a person who just learned to fly, who hasn't flown in all conditions, who doesn't know how to land at every airport, and doesn't quite know where we're going.
Right.
I want to get on a plane with someone who has depth of knowledge because the souls on board, our lives are in your hands. That's how seriously I take my relationships with my clients. My mantra is consulting with a conscience and change without casualty. When people get hurt, whether their self-esteems get hurt or their pocketbooks get hurt or just all sorts of hurts can happen in organizations that aren't deadly. They were preventable if we were thoughtful. And if I don't have all the answers. What I do have is great questions, wonderful perspective, and loads of resource. So I want to flip the script for everybody out there to say we've got the largest generation ever, which are the boomers. They have a lot to offer. All the generations in the workplace have tons to offer. And when we sit at the table together respectfully, there's nothing we can't figure out. And figuring out things these days is going to be ginormous. We have as much change. I try to put things into perspective as well, which is I don't spend a lot of time worrying. It's a waste of one's time. But I go, what happened in my grandparents' generation that might have caused them to go into the world? What happened in my parents' generation might have caused them to say into the world? There's always a lot of shit happening.
Yeah.
But I am control of my response. And you and I are energetic,
Right.
but I am one of the calmest people in the room. And through is the direction I'm going to navigate. And as many people as possible get pulled through with me. I have to tell one little story. Rarely do I meet someone who has the orientation of not only am I going to survive, I'm going to take as many people with me. I was recently on a plane to relocate myself to warmer temperatures, not to sit and play, but by the way, to work and rest, to get my balance back, do some work, and have a different viewpoint. I was seated with someone in the middle seat and the far seat. That didn't used to happen when I was a road warrior. I was always upgraded. I'm missing that. And now every seat is full. But there was a very tall gentleman in the aisle seat, and his wife was next to me, former military. And he looked over at me, and it was like he needed to negotiate something. So his wife made friends with me, and I'll talk to just about anybody. He's the guy who looks for all the exits, plans the worst case scenario, and knows how he's going to get his wife and as many people out. We established in minutes that I'm cut from the same cloth. And when I know them now, Wanda and Chris, who went on to a cruise, and I went on to Cancun, we are now fast and furious friends. The agreement Chris and I made was, you get us out of the plane and I'll guide your wife. You let go of her. I've got her. He looks after her all of the time, and you get the rest of us out of the plane. Chris sat back. I sat back. We had a plan for if the worst happens to us, which, by the way, since I made that trip at the beginning of the month, how many planes have gone down? Quite a few.
Yeah.
Be prepared for everything. It's not that I worry. I'm just planning, Rob. My mother said, stop running the what if stories. And I go, no, that's how I keep this lively. But I met this guy who was the same guy as I am. You get yourself out and you get as many other people out. That's how I approach my consultancy. Through is our only direction. Forward is our only direction. How do we do that conscientiously without casualty?
Yeah.
I met a guy. It was so much fun. We had lunch in Nashville Airport. They went one direction. I went another. We shared each other's holidays together, and they live in the same city I do. I made friends. That's another secret. Make friends everywhere you go.
You know, Leslie, it's interesting. You've got also a sales audience that's listening, and I've shared this story before, but when I at 21 selling life insurance, I only had in 2 years and change 2 people looking for life insurance calling me. First time I was excited. The second time I said, what did the doctor tell you today? I mean, and it was there at 21. I learned a very valuable lesson that selling's not what is, it's what if. And really what you're describing is kind of thinking along that line of, as that gentleman and you were, look, we're sitting in what is, but we're planning the what if. And I think as consultants, when we do that, we're worth our weight in gold. Anybody can clean up a mess on aisle 4. We're trying to keep that mess from even happening. And if it does, to minimize the impact. And how valuable is that? One other thing, Leslie, you mentioned the word wisdom, and I'm going to leave this whole ageism thing, but I'm going to tell you this, that don't be too flattered, but I consider you a wise person. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I have a definition of wisdom. Actually came to me on a red eye one night. So, that quasi, am I
Yes, I
dreaming or
do.
awake? But I think I came up with something. And in the morning, I wrote it down. In the morning, I went, it is good, which is rare. But wisdom consists of three things. It consists of success, it consists of failure, and it consists of a conscious knowledge of the lessons learned from each. So if all you've been is successful, good for you. I wouldn't mind. That sounds like a heck of a life you're living. I'm not going to call you wise, but I sure would think you're doing great there. If all you've had is failure, again, my heart goes out to you. But I think where you're coming from and where maybe I'm coming from, but I actually look to you for this is the one thing I know about you, Leslie Yerkes, is that you are a person that has a combination of both. I can feel it and hear it and sense it. And you know the lessons you learned from both. Now, that's why you're in the teepee as the wise woman. Okay. But I always struggle when I meet somebody who's 28 telling me about their wisdom. I'm thinking, I don't mean to put you down. I won't even speak it out loud. I don't want to sound like the old guy here, but you haven't had enough success or failure yet to convince me of that. And I wish businesses would understand that's what you're looking for. I'm not saying we got to go hire all, just look at the experience level, the competency level, and let's see where we go from there. One last thing. My son, I remember when he was at high school here in Virginia, he tried out for this some sort of band. But you know how they tried them out for the all-state band? They put him behind a screen. The judges couldn't see them in any way, had no idea what grade they were in, nothing. All they could do was listen to the music. I think there's a blog there for you, Leslie, by the way, if not for you, for me. But it's about listening to the music when you think about it. And when you listen to music, you really don't care what the musician looks like or the age of the
No,
musician.
there is a
You want to
blog
hear the
there,
music.
which is, and what translates, honest to goodness,
Yeah.
across all generations and reaches everyone. By the way, I love seniors because I had an experience of taking care of my mom in her last year of life. And I always have a senior that I'm taking care of. But those with memory issues, hearing goes last, by the way. So don't talk at their bedsides with all sorts of silly stuff. Play the music. But music transitions. My friends with Alzheimer's, and they could remember their favorites. I could calm one down with a Joan Baez story.
Yeah.
So I would like to accept, wonderful. I've gone from being weird. I liked weird. I loved weird. I came to really open my arms and pull her in because I was always the youngest person in the room, the only woman in the room, the only woman with a soft science degree in the room. And I was not born in the city that I chose to live in and put a business in. And being a quote unquote Clevelander is the first question they ask. Now, I've lived here since I was 25. You'd think I'd earn my stripes now. There's no accent to this city that I have. I don't have one from Pittsburgh, where I was raised but couldn't tell anybody that in Cleveland. I have a universal accent because I've lived around the world, but I was always weird. They didn't know what to do with the girl who was young, who had a soft science degree, who asked questions. I made peace with weird and just embraced I was always going to be this way. There were places I couldn't go up the main staircase of one club that was old school in Cleveland. I could only be on the sixth floor of a second club. Lots has changed since, and so some's changing back. But now people treat me differently when they see the platinum colored hair, which I could have chose, just like the blonde. I could have chose this. But I'm going to go with yours wise. I am now the elder statesman in my region for my field because the field's grown up around me. And that's weirder to me than young, female, and soft science. I'm the elder statesman. I accept the responsibility that goes with that. I am pulling as many people along with me into the field and sharing everything I have because that's one of my goals in life. These peer learning groups that I'm doing is about taking some of the tools and all of I have a 5,000 book library on leadership and management in my basement, giving them away. I want to next gen this. So can I make a pitch? Because
Sure.
I wrote 6 business books all about healthy organizations, healthy working relationships. I wrote 3 children's books on a dog rescue story that everybody who read it in my social media said, next book. But I don't write children's books. Studied it, did it, glad to have done it. It's a lot of fun. The next 3 books are not business or children. They're going to come in the field of, I don't know. This is my trouble is as an early adapter. Sometimes you do things that the market isn't ready for. We don't know where to put it in
Throw
the
it at
line.
me. I'll see if I'm usually pretty good at this. Let me hear about this.
So, love the book Eat, Love, Pray about a woman's experience of finding herself. It was not fictional. It was sort of true. I have 3 books, 80% written. I'm looking for an agent because it's all about what you just said. My success led me to the ability to do the things I did. My failures taught me the lessons. I'm a believer in formative experiences in people's strengths to leverage in the workplace. My 3 books are about 3 formative experiences that happened to me at that time, a midlife woman. I thought I was pretty well developed. By the way, learning never stops. The need for it, not at all. The capacity, not at all. So the first book, when I rescued a dog with my service dog who went everywhere and did my work with me, it changed my life because we couldn't live in the high-rise condo anymore. I had to keep a dog. My commitment I made to him the night I found him was, I'm coming back every night to feed and water you till you come home. That was a 2-month commitment. But I was a burned out entrepreneur, and the 2 months of waiting patiently, kindly, open-heartedly with my dog, we earned the trust of a feral-beaten, very large Bell Boer, South African Mastiff, and he changed our lives. 6 months later, so there's a book called Lost, Found, and Forever, Who Rescued Who. When I rescued him, everything had to change. Where I live had to change. How I lived had to change. 2 dogs had to change. I changed because I recovered from burnout in the 2 months of waiting him out patiently, using all the emotional intelligence I could. Because I was rested, my mother's, whose health was in decline the entire time, was in a crummy placement because my sister didn't know how to do this. So I rescued my mother. I committed to her. I moved her to this 900 square foot cottage. We lived on the shores of Lake Erie. Hardest client, best client, hardest work, best work, most important year of my life. She questioned me every night when I put her to bed. Why are you doing this? What's the motivation? And mine is unconditional love, baby, which she'd never experienced. And my mom, I am cut from that cloth. There's a second book called Camp Betsy, because I told her when I rescued her, I was sending her to camp and she got to stay when family members become caregivers, a year of living and dying, because we talked about dying every day. Those 2 experiences, like a pot put in a kiln, cured me even further. I once had a client who said to me, Les, you're like porcelain. And I said, because I'm round? I thought he was commenting on my weight. He was not.
Okay.
He said, if you know anything about throwing pots in porcelain, I do. Porcelain is thin and shiny. It goes into the kiln at the highest levels and breaks a lot. Leslie, you're like a porcelain pot. I said, round? He goes, get off of the weight thing, girl. That's your issue. No, shiny. Every time life deals you a high heat situation, you come out with a shiny side. I love that he thought of me that way. So rescuing big boy, shiny side earned, deepened me greatly, caused me to rescue my mom, year of never sleeping, loving unconditionally, and making peace with dying and becoming friends with my fierce mother. Last book, Leslie rescues Leslie. You can't fall off the floor. I gave everything to those 2 life experiences. I was tapped out, physically, mentally, other. And I don't ask for help. No one could see that I was going down. And so the last book is, how do you rescue yourself? And if anything, I'm watching the world of the business books that we write, self-compassion, self love, put the oxygen mask on first. All this stuff is out there because the leaders of life, we're having the boomer generation, we're having to learn that we cannot pull everybody across the finish line if we haven't taken care of ourselves first. So the next set of books is a series of formative experiences that affect a midlife entrepreneur who deepen who she has become and is becoming more. None of them, Rob, are prescriptive because when I first wrote them, they said, you tell us what to do when you hit these hardships. Don't tell us, just tell us the stories. Then I can see myself in the situation. They're a joy to write. But again, it's a new something for me, which is they're not business lessons. They're not children's books. They're about life because now when I interface with my clients, I see the wholeness of their life. You don't bring a section of yourself to work each day. You bring your whole self. So mine is, how do we tap into that greatness?
Yeah. Okay. It's a lot there. But a couple thoughts right off the bat. First of all, the word rescue is going to have to be in there somewhere. Okay. You already know. I see you nodding. We already know that. It's like the old Groucho Marx show, whatever. That's the secret word. That's the one where the bird just came down because I heard it tapped into all three stories. So we know that you've got to pull that thread. Second, I'm going to give you a homework assignment, if you don't mind. And maybe you've done this, but this is what I tell authors, even grizzled vets like us, and I do it too. When I'm kicking around an idea, I take a field trip, and my field trip is to the local Barnes and Noble, and I go find my book. And, and that can be challenging because remember, I'm like, am I general business? Am I motivation? I wrote a book called, I don't normally bring up my book titles, but one book was a little departure for me called The Way of the Road Warrior, Lessons in Business and Life from the Road Most Travel. And it took me over almost 3 years to sell it because I kept bragging. It can be a travel book. It can be a self-help book. It can be a business book. Look at me. I'm hitting on all cylinders. And of course, we've learned. So if you have a book for everybody, you have a book for nobody. So that's when I really said, I have to physically go to the store and figure out where it would be so I know how to sell it and position it and get it ready. So I'm going to remind you that a good trip to Barnes and Noble might help get you some clarification here.
Which is helpful. I did something as a result of our coming together in the office group. And in the beginning, I knew that like you have to have a clear message or else you don't have a target. I started to write on the writer's app called Substack. Mm-hmm. And you have to write a little positioning statement. So I had to get really clear on midlife entrepreneur, believes in formative experiences, has her own, grabs the lessons and runs with them, and then uses the same philosophy to uncork the people around her. I am quietly seeding my Substack with some of the stories from each of these books to see, does it resonate? Why does it resonate? Why do you connect with this? Where it's so much, this is where the newness of our domain, technology, allows us to test stuff before it gets put print on the page. It is yet again, a new landscape for us to navigate. We do this and help other people. Mine is, Leslie, you have been the Sherpa guide for so many other people. You know how to get them there safely and back down again. Better well put your own hiking boots on and go out there in the world and figure this new world out.
Hey, Leslie, do you ever, I know you keep a blog, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, as do I. Do you ever write little pieces of what you're working on, but as just smaller little blogs that you can kind of untack and begin to place into the manuscript itself?
Sometimes, because my blog that comes out every Tuesday, and they can sign up for it on the website, is I have an editor that keeps me on track. You have tried to keep me on track. Very hard job to do.
Oh, I'm failing miserably. I gotta meet this editor.
Randy's done it for 35 years. He knows my voice.
Right.
He calls a good blog a good sermon.
Uh-huh.
It has to be not mercenary, not all about me. It has to be a universal lesson that other people can see themselves in.
Yeah.
And I grab them from what I'm experiencing around me. And so they're written on napkins and spare pieces of paper and evolved and evolved and evolved. And right now, as I polish up these 3 manuscripts, it's to go back into the blogs and say, what blog inspired that chapter? What blog inspired this? Because this is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Life gives us everything to learn the lessons from which we will need. Are we aware enough that we're not just struggling through life, but throwing our arms open, pulling it into our chest and saying, what are you supposed to be teaching me now?
Yeah. How long you been writing that blog?
Oh,
May
you
have you
asked
beat here.
it.
I
A
gotta beat you
long,
on something. You're
a
killing me here.
long time.
Throughout a year, because I may have to inflate my years, but give me a number. 5 years.
5 years.
All right.
Five
I'm in
years.
year 16. And I will tell you that
Wow.
mine's every 2 weeks. By the way, I was every week for the first couple of years, but I thought my writing was going downhill because I was like, look, a moth hit me in the eye. All right, that's this week's blog. So, but I actually trademarked the term blarticle for what you just said. I've resisted blogs because I thought I'm reading about a guy who had a tuna fish sandwich. How does that help me? So I actually have a legal definition for what a blarticle is. And part of it is there has to be something in it, a definable message to the reader. So go eat your tuna fish sandwich. But if you can bounce off of that and say, and that's why in business or in life or when you run the playground, I don't care where, you got to look before you take a bite. Then you got, I'm sensing a blarticle now. So, but I love the delivery element of a blog. I don't want to waste people's time. I want to make sure there's a message in every story. And we as trainers, look, we try as hard as we can. You and I both know when we've told a story and we've looked and went, ugh, it's because we failed to connect it to the audience, right? And when we connect it, and sometimes I use the words just to make sure I connect it, I tell you this story because that's me getting back centered and forcing myself to articulate the connection. When we do that, now I'm loving a blog or a manuscript or whatever we got. Wish more people would do that.
Well, it is. And if I'm not inspired by the patterns I see around me,
Mhm.
one, Randy will nix it, which is lovely to have this accountability partner. But two, I just don't write that Tuesday. I don't feel that date is anything. But right now, the world has given me so much stuff. And it's not just because of what's happening in the news. We're just rich with experiences. They've always been there. I am busy. Busyness cuts out presence, but I am really, really present to what is around me. And man, is it rich.
Yeah.
Um, if we can help people find their own solutions, consulting and recommendations, cheap
Yeah,
seats,
that's why
cheap
we're here.
seats.
That's why we're here. All right, you're coming close to setting a record for my longest pocket-sized pep talk. But I can't let you go without one more question. I really want to ask you this question, but I want you to do it in 2 minutes or less, okay? Because it's a big question. So pick the real message here. Sometimes I refer to when we speak, and I rarely even care about asking this question to others, but I've seen you speak. When I see speakers, I think of, your content is the protein, but what you do with it is the sauce. Okay.
Oh,
That's
I
what
liked your
spices it up.
sauce blog article. I liked it.
Okay. So you know where I'm
I
coming
read
from.
it.
Okay. Good job. Tell me about your sauce a little bit, because I know there's some sauce in your delivery. If you were trying to explain that to a younger trainer or speaker who says, I love what you're doing, Leslie, but remember, sometimes you're doing something unconsciously, competently that it's so smooth, they don't catch it. What would be something you'd whisper to a trainer and say, you get up there, you add this to your sauce?
Okay. I will respond with a food metaphor.
Okay. Okay.
Bake the cake.
Uh-huh.
Cake has ingredients. Know your material. Practice your material. Never get comfortable with your material. Know your audience. Be passionate about your content, meaning Passion differentiates you as a speaker from anybody else. Don't just accept every engagement. Quality, service, knowledge. Get the fundamentals right. Make a good cake. But here's my sauce analogy. Don't forget to ice the cake. I have 2 books that are fun at work. 301 Ways to Have Fun at Work. Amazon was brand new. It went on their cover page for weeks, became a bestseller. And then I had to write a second book that was more serious because everybody just wanted to do the fun stuff. And it was like, but if you don't have a healthy organization doing respectable things in a consistent manner, just because you throw good parties, you're going to be out of business soon. Mine is the secret of being good at anything, individually, group, organizationally, is get the fundamentals right. Bake a cake, a good cake that people would eat without the icing. But don't forget to ice it. Spice it up with fun, and joy is expressed by each and every person differently. So accommodate that. Invite the whole person to work each day. Right. Last piece of the metaphor is, if I had a table and I put good cake out on the table, if I put plates of icing out on the table, if I put cake with icing out on the table, what would the majority of people eat?
I'm sure hoping they go to the cake with the icing on it.
You'd hope, but they go to the plate with the icing.
Ugh.
And then they eat it and they have too much sugar and then they want to nap or get sick.
Oh.
We joystificate. There's one of Leslie's words.
I've seen people who do nothing but put the icing out there. So we had a lot of fun, but we didn't learn anything. Okay.
Cake first.
Yeah. I hear you.
Don't forget to ice it. So surprise, delight, have fun, engage. I would not be our publisher's poster child for the Queen of Fun, which would have kept me going for 5, if not 10 years. I went short term, too narrow, not holistic, not the meal. Yeah, it will sell books, but it's not who I am.
Right.
I'm a serious consultant who doesn't take life too seriously. I make hard shit fun. I'm Sergeant Mary Poppins.
Well, I think that last title might be pretty good. I told you I don't curse on my podcast, but I let you curse. So making hard ass fun, that works for me. Look, I also pulled the word, although you ran through it like a stop sign. I'm sorry, I have to stop you when you said the word passion. You can be as knowledgeable as you want. You can do all those other pieces. Audiences know when they see passion, and they drink at it like it's like water coming from a desert. And they also know when it's not there. And no matter how proficient and effective in the handouts in the room, it doesn't work. Passion is really one of the keys. And that's who you are. I missed you for those 10 years because I don't think I missed a retreat. It was so great to see you again. We connected instantly, of course. Because as you can tell,
our energy scares others. Exactly. You put a male and a female in the room with this amount of energy, it's like, holy moly, the roof's coming off this place.
It clears the room. I saw people sort of moving away when you and I would get together. It's like, yeah, we got to find another place to sit. It's too loud over there in that corner. Once again, tell me how people get a hold of you.
The website will guide you to the blog, to signing up, to this. My email address is terribly long. It's one long word, catalystconsultinggroupinc @gmail.com. I get 1,000 a day like everybody else, but I read every single one of them. And I read people's work like yours. I pause. We are spending our lives in front of our laptops now or looking at our phones. All of the content we have is going out in this direction. But you know what? I'm keeping up.
Yeah. Well,
friend, thank you for this invitation. Time with you is jolly.
That's no. Well, Miss Leslie Yerkes, I have enjoyed it as well, but I've really enjoyed it. And I'm so glad we were able to do this. I always boast about the fact that I've got, I think, 440 podcasts, of which I've had 3 guests on twice. You're going to make it twice. We're going to talk again. We're going to now. I'm getting a sense of what you are on a podcast. And so, but we have a few different topics. I want to spend more time on your delivery. I think there's something there that obviously I appreciate because it reminds me of, me. And so for some reason, I really like it. But I think the better job people like you and me try and break down what it is we're doing and let people stylize it their own way. That'd be a heck of a podcast. And you owe me one on that one. So we're going to do that.
We do. And then I think we're going to have to sort of collaborate on one that is a boy-girl thing, because there's a lot of boy-girl things going on in the world. Girls are on the rise, maybe, but boys are afraid that girls are on the rise. We both belong in this world. We both have things to offer. We have different kinds of energy, and yet you and I can find our common ground every single time. I do think there's a boy-girl energy thing going on here that we got to get going.
All right, well, let's explore that.
This was not a pickup line.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm blushing. All right. I don't take it as a pickup line, but I really want to thank you. I think you did. I knew you would. Terrific job. Made my job easy on this side. In any case, just great seeing you and talking to you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. And just know, I watch and read everything you do because the quality of your content is always there. And so I say that to other people. If there was a good housekeeping, this is where our age shows when we reference something that a millennial or a Z or a G wouldn't know. You get the Leslie Yerke's good housekeeping, good writing, good sharing, good generous, and you're a leader in our professional community. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity.
I'm grateful. Thank you, Leslie. Well, folks, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, or we'll sure try. In any case, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.